Hello, my name is Michael, and in this video we're going to use Node.js, Express, AngularJS, and MongoDB to build a simple RESTful API contact list app. Now, there was a lot of jargon in what I just said, so I'm going to break down what I just said. In a nutshell, Node is what we're going to use for the back end of our app, which basically means that it's going to be the server on which our app runs. Express is a framework for Node that will make writing our code for our server a lot easier. Angular is going to be our front-end framework for our app, which means that it's going to be the interface that users see and experience when they use our app. MongoDB is the database where we're going to be storing our data. These four parts make up the mean stack, which together can be used to build full, powerful applications using just JavaScript on both the back end and the front end. And RESTful API basically refers to how we're going to be interacting with the data in our database. There's a lot more to be said about each one of these things, but since the purpose of this video is mainly to be a hands-on tutorial rather than an informational one, if you're interested in learning more, I would recommend that you Google them and just read more about them. For this video though, we're just going to jump right in and get started now. By the end of this video, we're going to have built a simple contact list where we can add, remove, and update contacts. Each contact will have a name, email, and phone number. Here's a sneak peek of what our contact list app will look like when we're finished with it. So as you can see, here's what it's going to look like, and we can add names, email. So I'm going to write michael@test.com. Number will be 111-111-1111. I can add the contact. I can add a second one. So let's say john@testemail.com. This one will be 222-222-2222. I can add it. I can also remove contacts. So I can remove the Michael. I can remove the John. I can add a second one, or a third one, sam@gmail.com, 333-333-3333. I can also edit it. So if I click on edit and then change Sam to, let's say, Sam Smith, change the email to Sam Smith, change the number to, let's say, extension 4444, we can click on update, and that will automatically update that contact. So this is what our app is going to look like when we're done. It's pretty cool, and so we're going to get started now. For this tutorial, there's going to be 43 steps. I know that sounds like a lot, but the purpose of breaking this tutorial down into steps is to hopefully help you be able to follow along better. Try not to think of this as just one big, humongous tutorial, but rather as lots of little pieces that will allow you to feel a sense of accomplishment as you accomplish each little step or each little part. So let's get started now. Before we begin, I just want to say that instead of using the default command prompt from Windows, I'm actually going to be using git bash, which allows you to connect directly with Git. Now, we're not going to be doing that for this tutorial, but I just want to let you know that that's what I'll be using. And there's one major difference between git bash and the command prompt terminal. So it might be a good idea to get this, and it'll help you in the future as well. So you can Google git bash, click on git downloads, click on downloads for Windows, just download it. And then you can open up git bash, which will look like this. If you go to git bash here, so here's what the command prompt is going to look like. The big difference is instead of using backslashes, we're going to be using forward slashes for our file names. So that's the major difference between the command prompt and git bash. But we'll get there. We're not going to use that for now. But download it and come back when you finish, and then we'll continue from there. So step number 1, make sure Node is downloaded and installed on our computer. If you haven't done this yet, check out my other video where I go through how to get Node set up on our computer. Basically go to the Node website, download it, and then install it. I'll just show you the website right here. So it's going to be nodejs.org. Click on install and then download. Step 2, in our Node projects folder, which we created in my introductory Node video, which you can watch. So we're going to open up our Node projects folder. We're going to create a new folder called contact list app, and this is going to be the folder where we store all of our files for this project. So let's call it contact list app, and we're going to go into this folder now. Step 3, in our contact list app folder, let's create a server.js file. So we're going to right click, go to new, and text document. Make sure the known file extensions are being shown here. Remember, we go to Organize, Folder and Search Options, View, and just make sure this Hide Extensions for Known File Types is unchecked here. Press OK. So we're going to name this file server.js. Enter. Step 4, we're going to open our server.js file with a text editor. I'm using Sublime Text, which you can Google and download for free. Let me just kind of show you where that is right now. Type in Sublime Text. Click on that. You can go down and click on Download. It's a really good editor, so I'd recommend that you get it and then come back here after you've downloaded that. So step 5, we're going to open the command prompt by clicking Start, and then we're going to go to, I'm going to be using git bash. You can use a normal command prompt if you want. So git bash right here. Step 6, we're going to navigate to our contact list app folder by using cd. So I'm going to type in cd ... which brings me back to my uses folder, cd ... which brings me back to my C folder, cd node projects, which brings me to that folder, and then cd contact list app. And now I'm in my contact list app folder. And step 7, we're going to use npm to install Express. So after navigating to the contact list app folder, in the command prompt, let's type npm install Express to install Express to this folder. So npm install Express, and that should download then. Step 8, we're going to require the Express module in our server.js file. So in our server.js file, let's type at the top var express equals require, I have a quotation mark there, express, semicolon, and then we're going to write var app equals express, parentheses, semicolon there. Now we can use the functions and commands contained within the Express module in our server.js file. Step 9, we're going to test to make sure that our server is running correctly. So underneath what we just typed, let's type app.get, parentheses, quotation mark, slash. That's going to set the route to our index page. Function request response. And then let's add that semicolon at the end there. Let's just type in response.send hello world from server.js. And then at the bottom, we're going to type in app.listen 3000. And then let's add in a console log, server running on port 3000. And so now in the command prompt, making sure that we're still in our contact list app folder, let's type node server, and we should see our console log message in the command prompt, which says server running on port 3000. Then in our browser, let's navigate to localhost colon 3000, so localhost colon 3000 right there. And now in our browser, we should see the message hello world from server.js. Okay, so now our Node and Express server is up and running. Step 10, set up our HTML template. We want to use an index.html file as the template for our app, so we need to first use an Express command to tell our server where to look for this file. To do this, let's first delete the app.get section in the message we just wrote, and let's replace that with this. So let's delete this right here, and let's instead type in app.use express.static. Static means status is basically going to be our HTML, JavaScript, and CSS files. And then the location is going to be underscore underscore. So there's two underscores there. Make sure you have two of them there. Dir name plus slash public, quotation mark, parentheses, parentheses, semicolon. Static basically means that we're telling the server to look for static files, which are basically our HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and image files, which are static because they're files that don't change dynamically as we use the app. The dir name plus public tells the server where to look to find our static files. For this app, we're going to put our static files in a folder called public. And now obviously this folder doesn't exist yet, so step 11, we're going to create a folder called public in our contact list app folder. So let's go back to our folder here, and let's click new folder and make one called public. Step 12, we're going to create an index.html file in our new public folder. So let's double click here, right click, new text document. Let's call this index.html. Step 13, we're going to write basic content in our new index.html file, just enough to see that our code works. So in our index.html file, let's type this. Let's open it up first. Let's type doc type HTML. That's going to be what surrounds our code. And then let's make a head. And then let's put a title in here. Let's call it contact list app. And let's create a body. In our body, let's make a header that says contact list app also. So contact list app. Let's save it. Okay, now to test our code, let's go back to our command prompt. Let's close our server, and then let's restart it with node server. And let's go back to our browser, refresh it, and now it should say contact list app at the top for our title, and then contact list app in the browser window. So now we've connected our server to an HTML template file. Step 14, we're going to now set up AngularJS in our index.html file. To do this, let's just use the CDN or the Content Delivery Network link, which we can find by going to the AngularJS homepage at angularjs.org. So let's go there right now, angularjs.org. We're going to click on download, and then we're just going to copy the text link next to CDN. My cursor shows a warning sign, but I can still copy it if I just triple click. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to go back to my index.html file, and then at the bottom, right above the closing body tag, I'm going to type in this. I'm going to type in script src equals parentheses and then quotation mark, and then I'm going to paste that in there, and then I'm going to close the script tag. And we're putting the link to our AngularJS JavaScript file at the bottom because we don't need to load it right away, so this will help our app load faster. Now we can use AngularJS with our app. Step 15, we're going to test AngularJS to make sure that it's working. So to do this, let's edit our index.html a little bit. Let's add ng-app to the HTML tag at the top, like this, ng-app. And then let's add an input below our header or our heading that includes ng-model equals test. So let's type input ng-model equals test. And then right underneath that, let's write test with double brackets around it, which is Angular's way of doing two-way binding. So this is what our index.html file should now look like. Now let's just refresh our browser. We don't need to restart our server if we're just making formatting changes. So let's refresh our browser. So now whatever we type in this input box here, we should see immediately show up right next to the box. This is Angular's amazing two-way binding, and this tells us that we've successfully set up Angular to use with our app. So that's pretty cool by itself right there. Step 16, let's set up Bootstrap in our index.html file. Bootstrap is going to give our page a responsive layout as well as make it look a lot better. So again, we're going to use the CDN link. To find it, let's go to getbootstrap.com. We're going to click on Getting Started, so getbootstrap.com. And then Getting Started right here. I'm going to scroll down. We're just going to copy these top two links here. We're not going to do the JavaScript there. And now let's copy them into our head section of our HTML document. So let's just copy paste that right there. We're putting these at the top because we want our styles to be loaded right when we load the page. JavaScript can wait. So now this is what our index.html file should look like. Step 17, let's now test Bootstrap to make sure that it's working. To do this, we can just refresh our browser. And if we do this, we'll notice that the front page has changed somewhat. So you see the font has changed kind of. That shows that Bootstrap's applied its formatting, which means that it's working. Step 18, we're going to now create the general layout for our contact list app. So now that we have the foundation set, let's write some HTML code that will be the layout for our contact list app. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a div with class container that's going to surround our entire layout, including that header there. So let me do that right here. Let me indent this to make it look a little nicer. And now if we refresh our browser, we'll see that our elements have been centered somewhat like that. So that shows that the container class is working. So now let's create a table for our contact list app. So let's put in a table with class table, which will apply some Bootstrap formatting to our table. And let's close that right there. So now let's create athead, and then tr, now I'm going to make some ths, which are table headers. And so I'm going to make one that says name, make another one that says email, and make one more that says numbers. So our contact list is going to have 3 different categories in it. And so now let's refresh our browser to see what this looks like. So now we have the basic layout or format of our contact list app. Step 19, we're going to now create a controller for our app. Our controller is going to control the interactions between our view, or what the user sees, which is our index.html file, and our model, which contains our data. This helps break our code into smaller, more manageable chunks instead of just having one huge file that's impossible to manage. So first, in our div container element, let's add ngController equals appcontrol inside, which will refer to our controller file. So we're going to add in ngController equals appcontrol. I'm just going to spell it like that. Don't need that extra bracket there. Okay, so now let's create our controller file. So let's go back to our public folder. Let's create a new folder called controllers. We're only going to be using one controller for this project, but if we wanted more, we would put them all in this folder. Now in this new controllers folder, let's make a new file called controller.js. Now let's go into this file. In step 20, we're going to now connect our controller.js file with our index.html file and then test to make sure that it's working properly. So to do this, we're going to first add another script src at the bottom of our index.html file. So we're going to write this right here, just right underneath here. We're going to write script src equals controllers, which is our controllers folder, / controller.js, which is the name of our file, and then we're going to close the script tag. And so now let's open our controller.js file, and let's write this code to connect the two files and test to make sure that the connection is working properly. Let's type in function app control parentheses squiggly bracket console.log hello world from controller. And let's save that. Now if we refresh our browser, we won't see anything. But now if you're using Google Chrome, we can now go to our developer tools console. If you're using Firefox, there's something called Firebug. We can go to the menu at the top right, click on more tools, and then developer tools. Or we could just press Control-Shift-I, which I usually just do. Then if we go to the console, which is what it should be at default, we should see the console log message that we sent, which says hello world from controller. Console logs that we print from our controller will show up in the browser, and console logs that we print from our server will show up on our command prompt. So now we know our controller is properly connected. And this is where we're going to end for this video. We're going to continue in the next one, so make sure you check out the subsequent video to continue with this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.